Okay, let's move on. So let's talk a bit more about validity. There happens to be a few different things with it, few peculiarities. So an invalid argument can have false premises. So in the previous case, we encountered an invalid argument that has true premises. But a valid argument can also have false premises, right? Try to get this notion of truth value distinct from validity, right? We're not so much concerned with the truth of premises, conclusions, or propositions. We're more, concerned with their relationships. And that's what I've been saying all along, internal cogency. So a valid argument can have false premises, right? What we're asking is, look, if the premises were true, what would happen to the conclusion? Similarly, a valid argument can have false conclusions. Again, we're asking, if the premises were true, what would happen to the false conclusion? Okay. Now, what happens is, if an argument is valid, then the premises, if the argument is valid, then if the premises were true, then the conclusion of the argument must also be true. And this is called truth preservation. What do I mean by truth preservation? Well, think about it as some process. We input some true premises, and if the argument is truth preserving, what happens is you input the true premises, and you'll get a true conclusion, right? If in a truth preserving argument you insert some false premises, then the conclusion could be true or false. We don't know. It depends on the argument. All truth preservation is that you insert some true things, you get some true things out of it, right? Okay. Here is an example of a valid argument that has false premises. Have a read. If the sky is green, the sky is green, first of all, and if the sky is green, then photosynthesis will behave differently in, X way, whatever that means. Now, if photosynthesis behaved in X way, then the leaves of most plants will be blue. Therefore, the leaves of most plants are blue. Yeah, this is an argument. And I'm going to tell you that it's valid. But I hope you can see that the premises are false, or at least one of them is false. Let's break it down. Premise 1, the sky is green. That's false. Look outside. Premise 2, let's say this is false. This is really some complex chemical or biological claim. Premise 3, let's say it's false. And the conclusion is false as well. This is actually a valid argument, because if the premises were true, then the conclusion must be true. Okay? Got it? I'm so sick of talking about validity now. Okay. But at last, we have to talk about two more things. Arguments which have contradictory premises are always valid. What do I mean by contradictory? That is, if one premise is true, the other can't be, and vice versa. Why does validity have this peculiar property? Well, let's look at the definition. An argument is valid if and only if there is no logical situation in which all the premises are true and the conclusion is false. Well, in the case of contradictory premises, you can never get this bit. You can never get the argument being true in all of its premises. Right? So you can never have a logical situation according to that argument where the premise is true and the conclusion is false. Here's an example. The shirt that I'm wearing is white. It doesn't really matter whether that's true or not. But what we do know is it's contradictory with respect to premise 2. The shirt that I'm wearing is not white. These two cannot be true at the same time. And then the conclusion might be, therefore, Tom Cruise was born in 1985. Right. Now, we actually know that this is a valid argument. It seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Because we know, Tom Cruise is not that young. But that's really beside the point. Again, validity, we're not concerned with truth values. Well, not concerned with true values in certain manners. But because this argument has contradictory premises, we know that there's no logical situation in which the premise is true and the conclusion is false. This is indeed a valid argument. What might happen on the exam is I give you an argument like this, contradictory premises, and I ask you, look, is it valid or invalid? Okay. Let me go back. There is a second oddity. Arguments which have tautological conclusions will always be valid. What does a tautology mean? Does anyone know? Or have a guess? Anyone? Okay, a tautology is something that is always going to be true. It's going to be true in all logically possible worlds. Okay. What's a tautology? Let me see if I can get you an example. Okay. And a tautology might be something like all triangles have 3 sides. That's a tautology. Why? Because it's contained within the definition of a triangle that they have 3 sides. Excuse me. Here are some other tautologies. All bachelors are unmarried. It's by the definition of a bachelor that they are unmarried. So in this example, what we have here is a tautological conclusion, which is always going to be true no matter what. This is always going to be true. Agreed? There are lots of these funny tautologies. Now, if we look at the definition of validity, I'm not going to read it this time. We know that there is no situation in which this argument has a false conclusion. So we know that there's no situation in which the premise is true and the conclusion is false. This is why arguments with tautological conclusions are always valid. Okay, cool.